suppressed like the most tickliest cough ever there.
Sorry.
Got it, baby.
So that's everything that we're going to need. Do you get it? So I think I've done that before. That's a really bad joke.
She said, Mum, if there was a breadstick week on the Great British Bake Off, you would win.
She did. Can I just say, when did they do this to our OXO cubes and turn them into an X like that and steal our bit of OXO? I don't approve.
I can't begin to tell you how not interested our audience are with this.
I'm really sorry.
Okay,
just cut that bit out then.
No, of course not. I'm not going to cut it out.
It's boring then,
They're all
isn't it?
chuckling.
Just roll it in your hand like this. Can you see how it just like grows into this little thin sausage? It's really fun. Because the other thing I like with my Bolognese is I like it to be nice and saucy.
Welcome, everybody, to the Bakery Bears video show. And today we're featuring Kay's Cosy Kitchen.
Yes.
My goodness, thank you all so much for your wonderful comments around this
Yes.
series so far. It is, of course, Kay's brand new series for 2022.
Yeah.
Can't believe we're actually 4 episodes into it today.
Is this the 4th one?
It is, and my goodness, has she got something special for you today?
Oh, yes.
And I'm going to tell you why. Because she's sharing with you, I think, definitely our new favourite combination of recipes.
Right, yes, definitely. This is Bryony's favourite tea. When I say tea, you would say dinner, some of you?
Bryony is, of course, our daughter.
Yeah.
And she not only said that it's her favourite tea, because we've been eating this for years, also, she said, and I'm going to tell you actually what Kay's making today, because Kay is going to share with you Kay's very special recipe for Bolognese sauce.
Yes.
But also, she's going to combine that with, and this is where the sort of new combination, our new favourite combination of recipes come in. Because special for this series, Kay decided that she wanted to add something, a lovely twist to the Bolognese. So you developed, looking at all the different recipes you've been using, a seeded breadstick recipe. And Bryony said the other day, I mean, don't you love it when young people do things like this? She said, Mum, if there was a breadstick week on the Great British Bake Off, you would win.
She did. How sweet is that? But yes, she did say that. She loves them, and I've made them a few times now, and she absolutely loves them. She's like, oh, and I should have made some today because we're actually having Bolognese for tea today, by chance. And I should have made some. Maybe I will.
Oh, no.
I'll see if I've
That's
got time.
crazy.
I've already got
She's
bread.
insane.
I've got bread proving downstairs for Dan already, so I'm not sure I'll be able to fit in breadsticks as well. But we'll see. You never know.
And folks, welcome back to our summer of stitching.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, we're sort of racing through it now, and it's marvellous because, of course, we're going to be talking a lot about this today. The amazing Christmas in July knit-along.
Yes.
That everyone can join in with.
It's soon, isn't it?
It is,
soon.
and there's something very special happening today.
Yes.
That feeds directly into that. But the summer of stitching, it got underway with the Moonstruck Socks course, which is sort of whirring its way to its conclusion now as we speak.
Yeah.
Also, as well, we're really getting close to the exciting sort of climax of finding out how long it takes Kay to knit a sock.
Yes.
Which has been such a super interesting process to go through. Both those series are available right now for our Bakery Bear patrons to watch. But yes, the sort of crown jewel in our summer of stitching is the Christmas in July knit-along, which everyone
can join in.
Everyone can come and join in with. But for you to really join in with the Christmas in July knit-along, you need some new patterns.
You do.
And today, we've got you covered.
Yes.
Patterns plural.
I've got 2 new patterns launching today.
Amazing. It's so exciting, isn't it?
So that's really exciting.
And they're like seriously cool. And what I love about them is, I mean, I'm all for getting a Christmas spirit. You know, Charles Dickens said it right. Ebenezer Scrooge keeps the spirit of Christmas all year long.
All year long.
And I am all for the spirit of Christmas all year long. But what you don't want is, you don't want like full-on twinkly lights and...
No, not necessarily.
Subtle Christmas.
Yeah, and I think it's... For people like me, and I know there are other people out there who kind of suffer during the summer don't enjoy the summer, the weather, the noise, the amount of light, all of that, and I'm definitely in that camp. I've found that sort of focusing on this that's coming up in July has just been really good. It's distracted my brain and it's given me something to look forward to in summer instead of always absolutely dreading it.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I think people who love summer equally well, you can happily knit along, can't you, and just think of the coming Christmas season.
Yes.
As well, so that's very exciting.
Now, you've had quite the week, haven't you?
Have I?
You have, because I think it was 2 episodes ago, we agreed that we would not be watching Downton The Return.
Oh, right.
But one sneaky lady one morning...
Guess what?
...decided that she was going to watch it. So look, we are all always ready to be sort of proved wrong and, you know, shown that never judge a book by its cover, do you? You should, you know, give it a chance. So tell me we were wrong. Was it marvellous?
No, not entirely. No. First of all, the first thing I'm going to say is you can only rent it, I think, at the moment.
Yes.
I couldn't see that you could buy it, which I think is naughty.
What they're doing is...
They're getting more money, aren't they?
No. What they're doing is, this all started during the whole lockdown period.
Oh, right, okay.
So what they do is they release it way earlier.
Yeah.
So you can watch it at home earlier.
Right, okay.
But they
Fair
charge
enough,
you
I
more.
suppose. They do.
Because they know that they're going to lose money because people who would have gone to see it at the cinema, who were maybe still a bit nervous about going to the cinema, know that for a little bit more than it would cost you.
It was a little bit more. It cost me
cinema.
£16 to rent it for like a 48-hour rental.
Yeah.
I think that's a fortune, personally.
Well, it is, because it would have cost us, if we'd booked right, probably £5 to watch it at the cinema.
Well, we all could have gone to the cinema for that. I think it's like $4.99 at the cinema, isn't it? So we all could have gone for that.
Yeah.
And admittedly, we all could have watched it, but Bryony wasn't interested in watching it because I'd told her roughly what was going to happen because I'd read, and she wasn't impressed with the storyline. She didn't like a couple of storylines at all, so she didn't want to watch it. You didn't want to watch it.
No.
But I was curious, so I watched it. I didn't really like it, if I'm honest. You know, this is just my opinion. I know there's lots of people out there that will have loved it. Fine, you know, everybody's different, aren't they? But
I think more of the question here, though, is the feedback that you gave me was that it did not feel like Downton. Because
not really,
you felt that the pacing was wrong.
It was
you felt
very.
It was rushed.
It seemed very rushed.
Yeah.
They seemed to pack in an awful lot.
Yeah.
And if you've watched the trailers, you will know that France is featured within the trailers, and I expected there to be this huge chunk of time within the film that they were in France. It isn't a huge chunk of time at all, really, that they're actually in France at this villa. I'm not giving anything away, this was on the trailer. But I just, the storylines I didn't really like, the sort of characters. There was one character that was completely missing out of it, which just felt weird. I didn't like how it ended. It felt really sad, and I don't like sad endings. So it wasn't for me, and I'm going to kind of try and forget that it exists and just pretend that the last film, and that actually the end of the last film, I pretend didn't exist as well.
Well, no, there's nothing... There's nothing really wrong with that last film, if that was the last film. If that was the last film,
I guess I just didn't like what they did with Maggie Smith again at the end of that. I thought that was unnecessary. Unnecessary sadness.
Well,
I don't agree with unnecessary sadness.
It wouldn't have been unnecessary had she not been in the new film. Because what they were setting
Again,
it up for...
she's in the trailer. I'm not giving anything away.
Yeah. So they were setting it up for her not to be in the new film.
Yes.
And then they've opted for the usual cheap, Hollywood blockbuster approach. I know what we'll do.
Yeah. Yeah, because they knew it would attract more audiences if she was in it.
Actually, sometimes it's nice to be proven right, isn't it?
Yeah.
So our reading on it 2 episodes ago was that we shouldn't be watching it, and I won't be watching it.
No, Bryony doesn't want to watch it, Dan doesn't want to watch it. I've watched it and forgotten about it, and, we watch Downton all the time. The original series, we watch it all the time. It's one of the best things, really, that I think has ever been produced. But I think you've just got to know when to stop.
Yes.
And sometimes I think producers and directors and everybody don't know when to stop because they just see pound signs.
That's exactly right. Money. Money spoils it.
They just see pound signs, and surely to goodness they will have made enough money out of Downton over the years.
This is particularly appropriate, all of this, because we just did a radio show on sequels.
We did.
Yes, we spoke about sequels which should and shouldn't have been made.
This one shouldn't have been made,
Definitely
in my opinion.
Shouldn't. No.
Yeah.
Now look, you're not the only one who had a little adventure this week, because I think it was Father's Day last year that you bought for me a pair of running glasses.
Did I?
You did.
Right.
Now, as you all most probably know, but I run 6 days a week, and I regularly run in all sorts of weathers, from sun to rain to even snow, which is actually quite fun.
Yeah.
And when it gets warmer, and the sun and the flies, you really do need glasses, because otherwise you end up with stuff in your eyes. But specifically for the sun, even on winter days, you really need sun.
You do.
So you need a good pair, because if you don't have a good pair, they bounce up and down when you run. Yeah. So I came up with this great pair, and I've loved them. They've been amazing. Oh yeah, and they still are. Don't worry.
Are you going to tell me they're broken?
No.
Oh right.
The great thing about this pair of glasses is, even if bits of them break, all of it is replaceable.
Oh, right, okay.
So you can replace the lenses.
I remember what make they were.
You can replace the body. You can replace the nose thing.
Gosh, wow.
Replace the things at the back. Now that's a quality piece of equipment, isn't it? So you don't have to go out buying a whole new one every time something goes wrong. So, out running just the other day, get back, take my glasses off. What I always do is I always pop them on top of the wheel of my car.
Oh no, right.
So I pop them, because I've got big wheels on my car. So I pop them on, and I've done this every time.
Yeah.
Pop them on top of the wheels of my car. I then warm down, and then as I'm coming back in the house, I go pick up my glasses, go in the house. So warm down, listening to my music as I do, look down for my glasses. They weren't there. So I'm like, did I wear glasses today? Did I imagine it? So I'm like, no, I didn't. I'm sure I had them on. So I look around, can't see anything. So I'm like, okay, they've dropped off.
Yeah.
So got down flat on the ground, head underneath the car, looking around, nothing. Starting to panic now. Stood up, walked all the way around the back of the car, still nothing. I'm like, what is going on? Am I completely losing my mind? I'm honestly thinking.
Did you still have them on?
No, I didn't. I wish I had. That would have been even funnier. But I'm honestly thinking, did I not wear them today? Do you know what happened? The wind, and it wasn't that windy, although it has been quite windy.
It has been quite windy.
Yeah. So the wind had blown them, and they had dropped over the back, and the nose piece was right over the arm that it was like the tyre had on a pair of sunglasses.
Are you kidding?
That it was like there. It was like, all you needed was eyes behind.
So they were behind the wheel?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. It was as if there was a face facing, sort of in towards the car.
What are the chances of that?
I know.
I wonder. You should have put the lottery on, because,
Like 1 billion to 1. I was like, so
they were okay?
They were fine. They were absolutely fine. They're really, really great, actually.
What make are they?
Oakleys.
Oakley, that's right.
So Kate very kindly bought them for me for Father's Day, and they have been just phenomenal. So if you're a cyclist or a runner, or even if you go sort of brisk walking with the old sticks,
they're good, because you're funny with sunglasses, because glasses don't really suit your face, and you've got to find the right...
I've just got a big head.
Yeah, you've just got to find the right shape for his face, because quite often they just look too small and they just look ridiculous on him. But these ones look really great. They're kind of like... they go a bit round there, and they're like blue, aren't they?
Yeah, you wouldn't wear them down the street.
No, they're not like going out sunglasses. They're definitely, exercising.
But the mystery of the glasses was solved. The wheel had put them on.
Right.
Look.
Wow.
That's enough waffle, because with 2 pattern launches today, I think it's time that I asked Kay Jones, what's on your needles?
Right. So the first thing I've got today is a new pair of socks. Because when do I not have a new pair of socks on the needles? You ask yourself. And I've got these socks in my Alex Collins bag that I was using for the Stitchy U, but that's, I've finished filming that now. So I've put them into this bag because there's moons and stars on it. I love the bag, it's a great bag. Because the theme of these socks, it's another pair of Star Trek themed socks.
Woohoo!
Because, yes, Bryony still absolutely is obsessed with Star Wars and
Star Trek.
Star Trek.
That's okay.
Newsflash.
Yes.
Bryony told me yesterday that BTS, the band BTS, are kind of disbanding. For a little while to do other things, and actually she wasn't bothered. She's kind of waned with her BTS love. I think this just happens, doesn't it? I think with teenagers.
Yes, yes.
Especially with Bryony, she gets obsessed with something and she's obsessed with it for like a year or two, and then she'll move on to something else.
Secretly, Kay loves BTS, and secretly,
do not. Well,
secretly you miss.
What I miss them putting out their brilliant songs.
Yes.
Like Dynamite and Butter
Yes.
and Permission to Dance.
Yes.
Those 3 songs were brilliant.
They were.
And I loved them, and Bryony loved them, and they've not done a song like that for a really good long while. And they recently put out a new album. We were expecting all these amazing things, and it's basically a regurgitation of all of their past stuff. Yeah, and there's 3 new songs. We're really excited. One of them was okay, the other 2 Bryony just didn't like at all, and her friend, who is the biggest BTS fan in the world, also didn't like them, so I think that's quite telling. So yeah, back to my socks. I made Bryony, I don't know if you remember, but I did make Bryony some Star Trek stripy socks a little while ago, and I dyed the yarns myself for those. And has she got them on today? No, she's not. I don't think she's got them on today, but she's worn them and worn them and worn them. And I had a little bit of the colours left, and I thought, what can I do with these colours, to make her another pair? And there's a character in The Next Generation that she absolutely loves. It's Wesley Crusher, Beverly Crusher's son. Very handsome young fella. And he wears all these bizarre jumpers. It's like, Star Trek fashion just gone wrong. But one of them actually is quite nice, and it's sort of Star Trek-y themed. But it's got the sort of 3 bands of colour at the top, and then the body is sort of this blue colour, and the neck is like grey. So I thought, well, I've got grey and I've got those 3 colours. I just need to find the body colour, and I can make her another pair of socks. So I did that, and I've started the socks. So I will show you where I'm up to. I'm just past the gusset decreases on the first sock, and I'll explain to you what I've done. Let's pop it on a blocker, because we can do that. So we've got the grey cuff, and I did a slightly longer cuff. I think I did 18 rounds here, so that it'd look like he's sort of little. It's not a full polo neck, I don't think, but he's sort of little bit of a polo neck up here in the dark grey. And then there's the 3 stripes of colour, the sort of Star Trek colours of the uniforms. And then the rest of his jumper is this sort of blue. And I really struggled to find this shade of blue. I was going to dye it up, and I thought, I don't even know. It might take me a while to get the right shade, and I just didn't really have the time to do it. So I had a look around, and in the end, I've got a Cascade yarn. It's a heritage, but it's not the standard heritage yarn. It's the silk version. It's Cascade Heritage Silk, because this colour just seemed to be the right colour. So the silk is 85% superwash merino and 15% silk, and the shade is 5765, and I think it was called something like washed denim or bleached denim or light denim, something like that. And it seemed to be just the right colour. If you look, when you compare it to the jumper, and I showed it to Bryony, I said, do you approve of this? And she said, yes, that's just right. So I'm knitting her a sock, and I'm really, really pleased. I think it looks great. So the rest of the sock...
Oh, it does. I've not seen that.
Yeah, the rest of the sock is just going to be in the blue. The whole rest of the sock. So this is like the rest of his jumper. So this is his neck, this is the top of the jumper, and then this is the rest of the jumper.
What's the pattern again?
I added a little texture pattern into the blue bit just to make it a bit more interesting for me to knit, and I've put in the Hermione's Everyday texture.
And you recognise.
Lovely Erica, the very famous Erica Luder, the writer and designer of Hermione's Everyday socks and lots of other designs as well. But this one is a free pattern, and I just popped in the texture pattern. Because I just thought it to give me something to do kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just a simple 4-row repeat. It's a free pattern. It's just a little pearl dot pattern. But it looks good with everything. You could put this into any sock and it would look good. So I'm really pleased. I think it looks really nice. And I know that she'll wear them and wear them and wear them. And I'm hoping, so these are the content of this is silk. It's not nylon. However, I think technically silk might even be a little bit stronger than nylon. You know, it is, I think they call it nature's nylon, don't they, silk? And, you know, it means that this yarn is, you know, it doesn't have any man-made products in it as well. I know it's superwash merino, so obviously there's a process involved there. If you are looking for something that doesn't have nylon in for socks, I'd recommend this. I mean, I don't obviously know how it's going to wear at this stage, but it's lovely to knit with, and it does give a slight sheen. It's not overly shiny at all. It knits lovely. It feels really nice. And I think actually I think they'll be just as hard wearing as an 85-15 if it was nylon. I don't think there'll be any less of wear. And I mean, we'll just see how it goes with the wear. But what I've done in this pair,
What's happened?
I'm not sure.
You're regretting it now.
Oh no, how's that happened?
The cable is caught on the blocker.
How on earth
How is that even possible? I would suggest that you slide that back in.
I don't know how that's happened. It's got tangled around. Oh, gosh, no. I shouldn't have done that. Right, okay.
Do you know what the solution is, ladies and gentlemen?
The cable's now there.
These are called DPMs.
Oh, no, it's still stuck on there. Oh, this is Krypton Factor stuff.
Could you not go forwards? Could you not slide it through?
Oh, no, now I've stabbed it with my needle. Oh.
But that's okay. It's not like...
Oh, yes. Ha! Oh, that's a scary knitting moment that was, wasn't it? I was going to tell you what heel I'd put in and the thing that I've done. I put in a square heel for a change. I like square heels. So if I show you there, look, you get a little sort of square strap underneath your foot. But what I find can happen with this heel, because you don't have that extra knit stitch after the decrease with this sort of heel. So basically you sort of knit 10 SSK and then you turn and then you purl 10 and you purl 2 together and then you turn. So it doesn't have that knit stitch after the decrease, and because of that I find that last stitch, that sort of decrease stitch, can end up looking sort of quite baggy and quite loose. So I did something this time to try and rectify that, and I think it worked. So what I'm going to do when I get to the second sock is I think I'll record a tutorial for how I did that, just in case it's useful for other people. But if I show you the heel turn, can you see here along the line? Normally I get a bit of sort of untidiness along there. The stitches are sort of quite big and stretched. But what I did, I think it has kind of reduced it. So I will do a tutorial for that just to show you what I did, just to help neaten that up. And I loved, I like figuring stuff like that out and just playing around with things. It just makes it more interesting for me. And, if you can figure something out and make something neater, then that's, a great thing in my book. So I'm just going to carry on and get these finished for her just as quick as I can, I suppose. I mean, she's not in any rush at all. But I know how much she loves Star Trek, so it'd be nice to have them done for the summer or something for her. And, I'm really enjoying them. I think it's really nice. And that, like I say, the yarn so far is lovely. I think what I will probably do is, I'll let you know when she's worn them for a bit. I'll maybe come back and let you know how it's worn. But certainly I have knit, actually. I was trying to think, because I thought I'd knit with this yarn before and I hadn't. What I have knit with is a Regia merino silk, and that was lovely. I actually knit a Advent project, the socks, the first Advent socks that I designed.
Yeah.
And I used Regia merino silk for that, and it was lovely, and they've worn really well. And I think that had more silk. I think that might have been a 75-25. But certainly I think when you've got silk, it's as good as nylon.
I can remember the church where we took the pictures on the floor.
Yeah, that's right, on the floor, yeah.
I can't remember the name of the socks.
Well, they're silk.
Right.
They're silk in, not nylon.
Right.
And they've worn really well. Bryony's worn those loads.
Right.
So yeah, I'll let you know, or report back at some point in the future. Oh, that's quite Star Trek-y, isn't it?
Do.
In the future, and let you know. But so far, really enjoying those, and I do like themed socks. It's fun to do themed socks. I don't know if I'm the only person that does this, but I really like themed socks because, you know, if you...
I remember when you started your Jaws themed socks and then you stopped them because you couldn't stand the fish lips kiss heel.
Oh, that's right. I did.
And that actually spurred you on to then design...
Oh, the afterthought heel.
Yeah, you know that you designed?
Yes,
What's that one called?
Oh, the umbrella socks. Yeah, there's yes, I designed an afterthought heel in the umbrella socks pattern, and I would much rather use that than the fish lips kiss. I mean, I've also...
It's a shame that you never went back and did those Jaws socks because it was such a good idea.
Well, it was self-striping yarn, and I don't have the yarn anymore, I don't think. I don't know why I don't. I don't know if I actually destashed it. I think I might have for some bizarre reason.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I should do some Jaws socks, actually. When I'm doing, like, themed socks, I actually like to have minis so that I can play about with stripes and things like that. So maybe I'll dye up some Jaws coloured minis. That would be super fun, wouldn't it? Shark colour and a blood colour, boat colour, and
cool.
Anyway, yes, that's my socks. So
it's interesting actually because you were just having issues with your magic loop there, and what situation were we in recently where you were like, you were doing something, were you fixing an issue for me, or what was it? But I just remember you being on DPNs and you saying, no, actually it is so much easier.
I'm going to show you the other project.
So it's actually a pair of socks?
Yes.
Amazing.
And I'm knitting them on DPNs.
Amazing.
Yes.
And had you just done the heel and you were like...
Yes.
Oh, now I see.
Actually, knitting a heel and the decreases, I think, is so much more straightforward on DPNs than...
It is. It's not, I think... It is more straightforward. It is,
but you know, it's just down to technique, isn't it? You've got to get all those techniques right. But yeah, I think
there's more techniques to get right with a magic loop.
It's more of a it's definitely more of a faff doing the heel and gusset decreases and everything on magic loop than it is on DPNs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'll show you that project actually.
Welcome to my world, sister.
I've always been in your world. Quite often I knit socks on DPNs and then I knit some on silly. Magic loop. You know, this is the joy of having different methods, isn't it? It's fun to switch and change.
Yes.
So, Dan Jones, what's on your lovely needles?
I can say with absolute... I've never been as proud of a sock as this.
It's lovely. I won't try and put it on the block at a dent.
No, well, you also wouldn't have that
problem. DPNs. No, you wouldn't have that problem.
I think what we all want when we're knitting something is sometimes it's nice to knit something and to look down and think, oh my goodness, did I really do that? And this is the Moss Eccles pattern, and it's like, it's just perfect because Kay actually asked me the other day, it's obviously lace. And she said, do you memorise the chart? And actually, when I'm knitting lace, so long as it's not massively complex lace, if it was massively complex lace, I think I would use the chart. But when it's not, this is just... I mean, in effect, this is 3 rounds of lace and 3 rounds of plain knitting.
Yeah.
And so when it's like that, and it's just, a short repeat, really... It's just 16 stitches. Yeah, 16 stitches. When it's like that, I just find it easier to read it written out. Because when it's like that, I can actually memorise it. Whereas if it's off a chart, I have to look at the chart. So I'm reading the chart, but I can't memorise it because to memorise it, I have to convert the chart into a word in my head. Yeah. And then I have to say that through to get the pattern stuck in my mind, and then off I go. So I just find it easier when it's already all written out.
Yeah.
It's a bit like when you're playing music.
Yeah.
If someone's like written A, B, C, D, the notes underneath. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm not an experienced lace knitter.
No, I don't think it's that. I think some people work better from written instructions and some people prefer charts.
Right.
I think it's just a personal thing.
Right.
Because I used to be the same as you. I loathed charts. If you're a long-time viewer, you will know about my loathing of charts. But I've completely converted now, and I always work off a chart.
I mean, it's funny because I love charts because I use them all the time with colour work, and I do use them with lace knitting sometimes. Yeah. Often it depends on how the pattern's written, doesn't it?
Yes.
Because sometimes you might just have a chart and that's it.
That's true.
And so you just work with what you've got, don't you? But in this situation, Kay, you were asking me directly, how do you do it? Do you memorise? Well, actually, yes, if I'm knitting, a nice rhythmic repeat that's not too long, then so long as it's written down for me, then I can absolutely memorise it. And back to the sort of main point, and that is, it just looks beyond my ability, because I think all of us, if we knit a pattern and what we're producing is like, that looks so great, who did that? It makes you feel better. It raises your self-esteem, and that's what these socks have done. I can think of so many pairs of socks that I've knitted.
They're really pretty.
That didn't raise my self-esteem, in fact lowered it. And these did their best to lower my self-esteem because I made a bit of a mistake.
Oh, you messed up.
Everything was going great. Last time you saw these socks, that's where they were.
Yeah, they were.
Now look. Now, basically what happened was, I blitzed that straight off in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, blitzed through it.
Look, that's quick for me. So I blitzed that off in a couple of weeks, and then I put it away because I rotate my projects, keeps everything fresh. Picked it back up again. It all went wrong.
It did. Yeah.
Got my yarn cut in my back. Already I messed up and misread. So Kay introduced me. Now, pro tip: mark the start of your round.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dan hadn't marked where the start of his round was, and I think, again, if you're working on Magic Loop, I think you can tell more easily the start of the round because you've just got the front and the back, haven't you? And you can see where your tail comes off. I think it's a bit more difficult when you're on DPNs as you get further through as well to track down where that start of round tail is. And I always, when I'm on DPNs, I always put a little clippy marker just under the needle that is the start of the round. And you hadn't done that. And what Dan had done is when he picked it back up again, the start of the round was off by a needle. He'd misread where the start of the round was. So he'd started it a needle too early. And that meant that the repeat was all wrong going forward, but then you got your yarn trapped in the bag and you had to cut it.
Yeah. And I was just looking at my work and I was thinking, oh no, there's a hole there. There's not.
It's where the yarn. So he had to cut his yarn and reattach it, and that had two more tails hanging down inside the sock, and I think that confused him even more.
All got so confusing.
We put a clippy marker, just one of these light bulb markers.
It's marvellous.
Underneath the needle that's the start of your round, and then you won't go wrong, will you?
This is my Moss Eccles sock. Yarn was dyed for me by Kay, and I can't decide what the right way forward is, because Kay, I think, might be right in that just by having that bulb marker there might be the thing that resolves the confusion when you first pick the project back up again.
Yeah, I think so.
We were talking about this the other day, and if you mess up there, you're done for, aren't you?
I had to tink back quite a lot, and I couldn't, because it was lace, I didn't want to just rip the needles out. So I tinked back for you, and it took me about an hour and a half or something to do
my
it.
tinking back abilities are definitely better than they were, but I can't do lace yet.
Yeah.
The day will come, hopefully, because I try to watch intently. But
we sorted it.
We sorted it, and then since then, everything's been fine. And so my dilemma now is, do I just need to knit on this constantly until it's finished and not rotate the project? I'm loath to sort of do that because that works for me so well.
Really,
because a huge part of any craft, anything that we do, is about keeping things fresh. And when you find the way that works for you, then I think it's always a challenge to then mess with that, because then projects can start to feel stale to you. You hear people sometimes say, oh, I've lost my knitting mojo. Well, that's probably because things have become a bit stale. And actually rotating projects for me, and as you all know, long-term viewers will know, having specific projects always on the go, like socks, mitts, jumpers, always having those types of projects on the go and being able to sort of jump between each of those keeps everything really fresh. Downside, of course, being, as I've said, because of the mistake that I made when I picked it back up again, it takes a few minutes, doesn't it, to get going, and that's what led to the problem. But we're always learning, and I think hopefully there is a resolution there.
Matches your bag really nicely, I think.
Yes.
There's a yellow.
I'd love to say that was deliberate.
A yellow owl.
It is not. What else is on your needles?
Right, well, I thought I would give you a little progress update on my bedtime blanket.
Oh, this is, of course, the marvellous blanket recipe,
Yes.
which was in one of our sort of first Summer of Stitching exciting releases, the latest issue of Knitability, which is available right now.
Yeah.
Jen's hard at work, actually.
Doing the
on
next one. I know, and I've got to write my article
So
this
do I.
afternoon.
So yes, last time, Kay wrote an article all about this lovely blanket and also shared the recipe with you.
I put in the recipe in there. I say recipe because it's really not, it's not a pattern. It's just a garter stitch blanket. But what I've done is there's an I-cord edge on either side.
Just thinking you've shared a few nice patterns in Knitability now.
I have, yeah.
Because you shared a cowl as well. The one that I went to take pictures of with Bryony and I fell down the hill. And
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I did, yeah.
And there was another pattern as well. I think Benjamin Crudwig did a pattern for us in Knitability
Right.
once as well. There's a few. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. I do like adding in little patterns, that I've been enjoying and done.
Yeah.
So I won't say, designed, because it really just is it's garter stitch. The only thing I'm doing that's extra is I've got an I-cord edge that's integrated. So to do that, all I'm doing is just slipping the last 3 stitches of every row. And it creates a lovely I-cord down either side of it. So, really all you need to do is just cast on a bunch of stitches. There's no minimum, there's no multiplier or anything like that. Just all I did was I just cast on until I thought it looked wide enough and just started knitting. And it really is as simple as that. I'm holding 2 fingering weights double. So I've got a background colour which is just undyed, just from my stash, just some undyed fingering weight. This is the third skein now, and I've got this stripe I'm on, and then there'll be another 20 grams, and I think that one will be gone, I think. So that I might have about 40 grams left there. And I think it will take, I'm going to see how long it is actually when I've finished this third skein. I just want to see how long it is, because all I need it to be is a lap blanket. That's the ones that I tend to use the most. So we'll see how long it is. And then I'm just holding it double with various mini, some of them are minis, some of them I've just wound off 20 grams from a full ball. But it's all shades of pink and it matches my top today. I'm very coordinated, aren't I? So look how long it is now. So this is held double. So this is where I'm at now. And I'm actually at the moment, this one that I'm putting in here is leftovers from some socks that I'm going to show you as finished, which is fun. I've just noticed I've missed one of the strands there. I'm going to drop down and sort that out on the next row. You can sometimes miss, when you're holding yarn double, you can sometimes miss one of the strands, can't you? And usually I notice it, but there's one row down that I've missed there, but I can sort that out by dropping down. Yeah, so I'm just holding them double and I'm using, what am I using? 5mm needles, and this is how long it is now. Oh, look, so it starts way down here and it goes all the way up to, or down to here. I think last time I showed you I was here, so I've done quite a lot since then. Look, 20, 40, 60, 80, almost 100 grams since then.
You're clearly really enjoying knitting it.
Yeah, I love it. It's just perfect bedtime knitting. And
I would be tempted just to go as long as you want to go, because it
I probably
really doesn't matter how long.
Look how lovely it is. Oh,
even if it was full body length, that'd sort of be cool.
Yeah, I think my plan was to use 4 100-gram skeins, and so what would that be? 20 minis, is that? Yeah, that's right, isn't it? 20 gram minis. And that'll be really, really long then, I think. Yes, so it's just knitting and then, like I said, slipping those edge stitches, simple as anything. But I'm really enjoying it, and I know a few people from reading Knitability have cast one on, and that's really great. And I've got some ends to weave in. That's one thing, actually. I get asked quite often if I use magic knots in my blankets, and it's a yes and no answer. I use magic knots when I'm crocheting, but I don't in knitting. And that's not because I'm worried about them breaking, because I've never had a knot, touch wood, I've never had a knot come undone in crochet at all. Will you touch wood? This is wood. It's not really wood, is it?
No, but that's the nearest
It's the
to
nearest to wood.
Yeah.
I don't really got anything wood. We live in a woodless world, don't we, these days? Yeah, so I've never had a knot come undone in crochet, but I haven't in knitting, to be fair. But I remember using magic knot once in a knitted blanket. I can't remember which one it was. And I just didn't like it because I felt like I could see the knot. I don't ever feel like I can see the knot in crochet. I think because of the nature of the fabric, I just can never find the knot in crochet. But when it's in knitting, it just seems to jump out at me, and I don't really like that very much. So I just cut the yarn and then I just weave in when it's knitting. I don't find that to be a problem at all. I quite enjoy it. So yeah, that's my bedtime blanket. I'm going to just carry on and just stop when it's big enough, basically, and then probably do another one because it's just so lovely to knit. Oh, it looks so lovely with all the pinks, doesn't it? Yeah. Oh, pink. It's good. You've got to love pink, haven't you?
And you can read all about that lovely blanket in the latest issue of Knitability, as we've mentioned.
Yes.
So look, 2 episodes ago, I gave you a little test. And I didn't tell you I was giving you a test. And I think only one person passed the test. And I can't actually remember who that person was.
Right.
But hopefully they know who they are. But yes, I deliberately left out the...
oh, gosh, you did.
The Twisted Ruby. I left it out to see if you'd notice. And one person did, so really well done to that person.
Wasn't deliberate at all, he forgot.
The really funny thing was...
So I had to rip that out as well. I ripped it.
What happened was...
I ripped it back
last
to
time...
the
hold on. So what happened was, last time... No, 2 episodes ago, I pulled this out of the bag, and because I didn't have a gorgeous DPN holder that now fits my needles...
Made him one.
I ripped off a load of stitches. So Kay ripped back a certain amount of stitches down to around here, and then I started knitting again. And then someone made a comment on the show, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, have I actually done that? I go and look at the project, and I had. So then I had to go back to Kay, who'd already ripped it back once, and I'd already started knitting again, to say, I've sort of forgotten to put in the twisted rib, so would you mind ripping it back again for me? So she did. So she ripped it back once for practice, and then twice for actual. And then I
need practice at ripping back.
Look, though, at the progress I've made now, and I would have made more. It's just we were watching the end of The Blind Side last night.
Oh, blooming amazing film, everyone. Go and watch it immediately if you haven't. Oh, I loved it so much.
So yeah, we were watching the end of The Blind Side.
Sandra Bullock got an Oscar for it, and she absolutely deserves it. She was amazing.
And from what I've read, I don't think she expected that at all. I think it was a real sort of surprise, which is
such cool. We were talking about feel-good factor, wasn't I, earlier? And this film has just got all of the feel-goods you could possibly have. And it's based on a true story. I mean, what could be better?
Yes.
Amazing. Yeah.
So I didn't want to... what I'm trying to very badly say is I'm right at the point where I need to slip off the thumb stitches and then backwards loop cast on over the top of that and then carry on knitting. And I can do all of that, but as Kay finds unbelievably amusing, I'm not very good at the backwards loop cast on. It's like I have to concentrate harder than the hardest thing in the history of the world. You find it highly amusing, don't you? Because it's like the simplest cast on ever.
Yeah, I think it is.
Well, it sort of is, and I'm convinced that's half of what my problem is. I think it's harder than it is.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
probably.
And you just need to go relax. Go for it. But
I made you a DPN holder, and I was doing a bit.
So much has happened.
I was doing a bit of sewing. I was making a birthday gift for a friend actually, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to make you a DPN holder whilst I'm doing that." And couldn't remember for the life of me how I've made them before. It's years since I've made one, so I kind of looked at a previous one I'd made and figured out how to make it. And I just got a couple of. What are these called? Are they? What? Are they charm squares?
Yeah, I've heard you say that before.
I think they're charm squares. I think they're 5-inch squares. So I got 2 in these Halloween-y fabrics, and then the lining's got stars on it.
And look, it matches.
And it does match. I just wanted to do a Halloween-y one. I just thought orangey colours suit you, even though you know, it's not an item of clothing, I know. So my logic really has no logic there. But you did choose the snapper colours, because you...
I didn't realise.
You did, I showed you
I'm
loads.
sure you did.
I've got a box full of different coloured snappers. What are they called? Snaps? Press studs? What are they? I don't know. These things. You chose that lovely bright green, which is nice and Halloweeny, isn't it?
So it's really sorted out the whole sort of storing the project.
No
getting it back
more
out
mess ups for you, mister.
Thank goodness. The only thing I will say is it really is quite challenging doing twisted rib on DPNs.
Yes, I would agree with that.
It really is.
I'm not sure it's even necessary to do it twisted. You know, if it had been me, I would have just... I think the rib is unnecessary.
Yes, the rib is completely unnecessary.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit over-designed, maybe.
I speak about this in the Self-Contained Knitter.
Right, okay.
Because one of the things which I think often is the case, and it's difficult to know, and I totally respect this, it's not about what you put in, it's what you leave out, isn't it?
Yeah.
And sometimes less is more. And in this case, actually, I think it looks better. If I was to knit these again, I wouldn't put the ribbing in, because it's just not necessary.
No, I think the idea is that it sort of grips your wrist, because that's on your wrist.
I'm sure that is the idea. So actually what you need to do is you either need to lose this bit at the bottom.
Yeah, I agree, because if you think, you know, it would look like that.
Well, extend the rib.
Or it would look like that.
Extend the rib and put the Dan braids either side.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's probably what I would have done. But they're lovely, and they'll be a really lovely pair when you've finished.
Yes. What else is on your needles?
Okay.
It's these amazing socks.
Yes, so the last thing is another pair of socks, and I cast on a new pair of socks for Dan.
Oh, that's exciting.
And I spoke about this yarn actually on the last show. I've got my little sock book in here.
James C. Brett.
I've got my little Hobonichi sock book. I bought this Hobonichi book, I don't know if I mentioned it before actually, to practice using the something river paper that they use in Hobonichi, to practice this thin paper. And we don't need to go into the whole Hobonichi thing again, but anyway, I now use it for a little sock journal for Dan's socks. It's become sort of Dan's sock journal. So I keep that in whatever bag I'm using. Halloween bag from Lovely Moo and Mouse. It's one of my very, very favourite bags. And in the lovely bag, I've got a pair of socks for Dan, because I mentioned this yarn on the last show. I showed a couple of balls that I'd bought and said I'd started a sock, and this is the sock, and it's really nice. This yarn is really nice, and it's really economical. It's the James C. Brett Funny Feets. I think it's like £5 a ball or something. And this colour is, oh gosh, well there it is. It doesn't have a name, it's just letters and numbers. And it's shades of blue. And I've actually taken a little bit from one of the other balls that's up here. It's for the heel, just for a bit of fun. And this is a pair I'm knitting on DPNs. So let me just rearrange myself. So I'm on the gusset decreases, and I really like the way the yarn's knitting up. Look.
It's lovely. It reminds me of opal.
It does, yeah, the way that this is knitting up does remind me of an opal. And I've put in, I just thought it'd be fun to add a different coloured heel. So I used a little bit from another ball in these sort of peachy corally shades, which I think is really nice. And I'm on the gusset decreases. But yeah, I'm using DPNs, you can see here. And I spoke about these DPNs before, you know, a few months ago when I discovered them and was totally obsessed with them. And I just thought, oh yes, I'm going to use those for Dan's socks. And they are lovely. It's the Addy Calibri DPNs. And you get, there's 5, it's a set of 5 DPNs, and I do use, and Dan does use, 5 DPNs for knitting socks. So I hold my stitches on 4 and then I knit with the 5th. It just makes more sense to me, but I know a lot of people just use 3 and knit with the 4th. Whatever works for you works, doesn't it? And they're just lovely. They're different colours, so you get like 2 shades of blue, 2 shades of a gold, and then a red. and they're just lovely. One end of the DPN is blunter than the other, so I don't know if it'll show, but that's the blunter end, and then that's the sharper end. And I don't really pay much attention to that because I'm just plain knitting, and it works equally well. There's not really an issue I don't find with either of them. I would prefer it if they were both the sharp end, if I'm absolutely honest, because I prefer a sharper tip. But it works perfectly fine, and they're just fun, to have different coloured needles. It's just kind of fun. And they're metal, but they're really nice. So I'm on the gusset decreases, and it's just really nice yarn. And that's it in the skein. It doesn't look like it's going to knit up like it does it? It just kind of looks like it's sort of a tonal.
Yeah.
But then it knits up into these lovely stripes. And the other reason I wanted to put in a different coloured heel is I didn't want to sort of jiggle with the sequins too much, because I just think it looks really nice. I wanted to see what the sequins actually looks like. It's really nice to knit with. I think it's a bit softer than an opal. It's definitely plumper than an opal, because you get 400 metres in this, and I think with an opal you might get like 425 metres, 200 grams, so it's definitely a bit plumper. And this has got bamboo in it. I think that's what makes it so nice to knit with. It's 50% superwash wool, 25 polyamide or nylon, and 25% bamboo. And I think it's the bamboo that gives it a kind of, because bamboo, if you've ever knit with yarn that's got a lot of bamboo in it, it's very drapey and very silky sort of fibre. So that kind of adds a little bit of that into it. Really nice to knit with. So if you're looking for an economical sock yarn, I would really recommend this. I've wound it into a cake and I didn't encounter any knots in there, which is good. And I obviously don't know how it's going to wear, but certainly to knit with, really lovely, absolutely no complaints at all. So thank you to Paula, Stitched by Mrs. D, for this, because I saw her knitting this yarn on her podcast and raced over and got some. Lovely project.
Look, the excitement is it's tangible.
Do you want some Bolognese, everyone?
No, they don't.
You're going to make it for your tea?
They do not.
Oh, okay.
Because before any of that, they want a pattern release.
Oh!
Yes.
Are we going to talk about that?
Yeah,
oh my
please.
Goodness.
So these are the first of the special pattern launches to celebrate the summer of stitching and our Christmas in July knit along.
Yes. So these are the tinsel socks.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, lovely. They've gone through testing. Thank you so much to our testers. I gave them a deadline date and they all finished like over a week before that deadline date, which is why I can release them, probably about a week earlier than I anticipated, and it just all works out perfectly. So thank you so much to our testers. And yeah, these are the tinsel socks. So I actually knit them with a mini skein set in mind. I dyed these yarns and I actually dyed up 2 sets. So here's the other, and this will be the prize for our Christmas in July knit along. So the winner will get this lovely mini skein set, which is exactly the same as the one I used to knit the socks. So the knit along will be starting 1st of July and it'll run through the whole of July. You don't have to knit any of my patterns if you don't want to. You can knit whatever you want to. But, in celebration of this lovely, this lovely event, I wanted to put out this pattern, and there's another one, and I'll show you that one a bit later. But I really love these. You use mini skeins, like I said, and you do a little bit of a fancy thing on the changeover. And they're just so pretty.
What I love the most about it is, normally when you see socks like this, like scrappy type socks, your eye's not drawn to a design feature. And because there's a lovely design feature in it, it's like I'm totally appreciating the colours and everything a lot more. And rather than being just one whole thing, you're like, ooh, that's gorgeous there, and that's so lovely the way that blends.
The idea is that little pattern is reminiscent of tinsel.
Yes.
Sort of strung around the tree. The coloured tinsel, which we all had back in the day. And we all have pretty silver and gold now, don't we? But back in the day, tinsel was like a million different colours, wasn't it?
Yeah,
blue
gorgeous.
And purple and green and So yeah, it's really nice. So it's top down. You know, the instructions are fully there as to how you go about, you know, using all of your minis. There's also information in there about the foot length, just making sure that you can end at the right point. There's also just little sort of tips in there about your needle size, because it does involve some slip stitches, and just from feedback from my testers, I made some adjustments just to make sure that the fit is really good. So that information is in there as well, just to make sure that everyone gets a really good fitting sock, because that's, you know, one of the most important things, isn't it?
I think as well what must be really encouraging for you is the fact that everyone finished so quickly.
Everyone finished really quickly.
Means that what you said earlier on this year was, you said that you just couldn't stop knitting these.
Yeah.
So they must have felt the same.
And
that's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah, I hope so. And you don't obviously have to use festive colours. One of my testers, actually, her colours, it was gorgeous. They were like blues and browns and creams, I think. Just looked really beautiful. So use whatever yarns you've got, you know, go into your stash, choose 5 minis. Solid colours work better because, you know, you won't, if you use variegated, you just won't see that little pretty detail. So go into your stash, choose 5 mini skeins and make yourself some lovely Christmas in July tinsel socks.
And enter them in the summer of stitching. Knit along.
There will be a thread. You know, we're not quite at July yet, but when we get to that point, I will open a thread on Ravelry. And if you want to enter, you know, on Ravelry, then you can post your items in there. You don't have to finish your item, actually. We'll talk about this a bit closer on, because the next show actually comes out on the 1st of July, so we'll give you all of the details then.
Cool.
But if you want to get your projects ready, because I'm going to talk about the project that I've got ready in Endy Bits, and I know that it's nice to sort of gather everything, isn't it, and pop it into a bag. So getting the pattern out now means that you can do that. Go raid your stash for some minis.
Cool. Right, that is enough knitting.
Yes.
Because I'm feeling rather peckish. And today it is an absolute classic because, as we said earlier, it's one of our absolute favourites. But to celebrate this wonderful show, Kay's added just the most perfect twist. So, without further ado, let's sit back and enjoy together another wonderful episode of Kay's Cosy Kitchen.
I love cake. But I've reached the point in my life where cake no longer likes me. What if I was to tell you that there is a solution? A way that we can eat delicious meals and still feel great afterwards. In this series, I'm going to show you how I do it, and there won't just be puddings. There'll be retro dinners and storeroom staples too. This is going to be so much fun, so welcome to my cosy kitchen. I should have said welcome back, shouldn't I? Because yes, we are back in the kitchen today. It is a really special day because I'm going to be making something that is on our menu every single week. We eat this every single week. It's a main meal. So I know that a lot of you out there really like the main meals that I show, and it is my own recipe. Going back to, I don't know, probably the 80s when I first got my own house, and well, that would have been probably 1990 or 1991, but close enough. And I started cooking myself, and this is something that I've just always made, and I've sort of changed it a little bit over the years. But the recipe that I now use is one that we all really enjoy, and it kind of for us has got that vintage feel. If you can call the 80s vintage, I'm not sure we can, it seems 2 minutes ago. But yeah, it is one of my own recipes. And what we're going to be making today is Bolognese. So this is my own recipe Bolognese, which we eat with spelt pasta, always spelt, you know me now. If I say anything is, you know, bread or pasta, it's always spelt. Not only are we making Bolognese, but we're going to be making something to sort of accompany, either to accompany the Bolognese when you have it, or you could actually use them and have them as a starter with some dips, because we're going to be making some breadsticks. Very exciting. And they're not just plain breadsticks, we're going to be making some poppy seed breadsticks. I absolutely love poppy seeds. So yeah, we're going to be making our own breadsticks, which I know might seem a bit, you know, one of those things where you can just easily pick up breadsticks in the supermarket and they're perfectly fine. But the reason I make them is, again, because I can use spelt flour. You don't have to use spelt flour, but you know, it works for us. So it means that we can have some bread and know that we'll be absolutely fine with it. And they are delicious, fantastic. And they would actually be great for picnics, you know, taking on picnics with some hummus or, you know, salsa or something like that. Absolutely lovely. So yeah, it's bolognese and it is breadsticks today. So the first thing we need to do is take a look at some ingredients. So what we're going to need to make our delicious bolognese. So we've got over here 2 onions and some garlic. This clove of garlic is massive. If it was a normal sized clove of garlic, I'd probably use a couple, but this is huge, so I've just got this massive clove of garlic. I've got a couple of sticks of celery, some fresh parsley. This is flat leaf parsley. I've got my oil over there. And then I've got oregano, but this is dried oregano. I'm going to talk about the herbs a little bit later as I get to actually putting them in, and I'll explain to you why I use the herbs I do. We've then got our sort of tomato element. Now I'm actually making today a really big quantity because this is how we cook. We batch cook our meals. So this is like I say, it's a big quantity. So you can just reduce it or do the same as me and freeze it, which is what we do. We split it into batches and freeze it. So because I'm making a large quantity, that's why I've got probably what you think is a large amount of ingredients. But I've got 3 tins of chopped tomatoes. What I will say about tomatoes is it's really worth getting the best quality ones that you can. It does make a difference. I find that the good brands, this one is Sirio, these are really good. Napolina are also nice. It does make a difference. I find that the cheaper brands are sort of more sharp. They're not quite as sweet and lovely. So it is worth paying a little bit extra for good tomatoes. I've then got some tomato puree. We buy these ones in the little sort of sachets. We find these really good. And I'm going to be using 2 of these. These are 70 grams each. And I've got 2 of them. I've got a couple of beef oxos, a good old English ingredient. So a couple of oxo cubes. I've got some chestnut mushrooms. And then our beef mince. So I've got altogether, there's a kilo here. These are 500 grams each. And we always use the lean steak mince. We just find this to be the nicest and has the the least amount of fat. We just try and be as, lean as possible. And like I said, there's a kilogram, but I'm making a big amount. So you can just halve everything if you want to, or you can do as I am doing. And then I've just got some sea salt. So what equipment will we need? So all we're going to need to make our bolognese is your favourite knife for chopping, a good spoon for stirring, and your pan. Now this is the biggest pan that we've got. It is on the inside there, the top measurement is 3.25 litres. But it's a great big saucepan basically, with a lid. It's important that it has a lid as well, and I like this particular pan because it's got a lid which has got little holes here, so it does allow for a little bit of steam to come out, but largely it keeps everything in there. So that's everything we're going to need, and it's time to start cooking. Right, so the first thing I need to do is to chop my onions. So I don't do this any fancy way with the onions. I know that some people do it a really chefy way. I don't. My aim is just to chop the onions up and get them in the pan. So all I do is I slice them down one way, because I don't mind if the onions are a bit on the chunky side, because we're going to cook this for quite a long time. So I just you can see how chunky they are. Just roughly chopped is fine by me. If you want to do it finer, then by all means do that. Okay, that's all of our onions chopped, so I'm going to spray in just a little bit of oil. I use a spray because then you are less inclined to put in tons. And then just pop the heat on and pile in your onions. I know it looks like a lot of onions, but onions actually cook down by sort of a large quantity. You know, by the time they've finished cooking within it, they really do reduce down, and they give such, I think onions always give a kind of deep sort of savoury flavour to anything, don't they? So that's just started sizzling away, and I'm going to get my garlic and just grate that in. You can use as much garlic, or you know, if you don't like garlic, you can leave it out. I saw recently actually, and I did know this about her, but the Queen never allows garlic to be cooked into anything because she always thinks it's awful if people come away from like a dinner or an event and they smell of garlic. So she never has garlic in anything. And then just give that a stir. So I'm going to leave that on a sort of medium heat and keep stirring it. We've not got a lot of oil in there, so keep an eye on it. And whilst that's cooking away, I'm just going to chop my celery. I've just got a couple of sticks of celery, so just top and tail them. I actually, you might know this because I've said it before, I actually can't stand celery, but that's in its raw form. I don't mind it at all when it's cooked into something because you don't really taste it as such. It just becomes part of the underlying flavour. So I just take off any stringy bits that are really stringy, and then I'm just going to chop this up into sort of little tiny cubes. And at the same time, I'm just going to keep stirring my onions. So you can now add your celery in. Once you add the celery in, you'll find that the chances of it sticking sort of reduce because the celery releases a bit of water and steam, and I find it doesn't have a tendency to stick so much once your celery's in. So now I'm just going to let that cook for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, just until the onions become sort of a little bit translucent and we know that they've cooked a little bit then. They are going to have a long cooking time, so all we're doing at this stage is just getting that cooking process going. So give them a good 5 minutes cooking. Okay, so that's had a good 5 minutes and the onions now have started to turn sort of translucent, slightly see-through, which is perfect. They're just softening down. So now we're going to add in our mince. So just going to pile it in. That's one. I think in the US actually mince would be called ground beef. It's just different terms, isn't it? So there's a lot that's gone in there, and now what I do, because I don't like bolognese when you get big chunks of meat, do you know how it can sort of stick together in a little clump? I don't like that, so this is just a personal thing. So I kind of mash it. So I'm just going to do this until the mince is all brown. So I'm mashing it like this with my wooden spoon, and then when I've gone over it quite a lot, by then the bottom bit will be browned and I'll turn it over and keep mashing, because like I said, I don't want to get those big chunks of mince. So for example, I don't want to get a big chunk of meat like that when I'm eating my bolognese. I want it to all be even, so I kind of sort of smooth it out to effectively make it into like a paste, if you like. It gives a sort of nice fine grained texture, if that makes sense. So this will probably take me a good 5 minutes, and I can turn my heat up a little bit now actually, because we're not going to burn now or any, there's no risk of burning because we're in there and turning it. So you can see now that that is all lovely and browned, and it's all sort of fine textured, no sort of massive lumps, looking great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in my tomato puree and my kind of seasonings and flavourings that I add in. Now, tomato puree, I'm going to add in both of these. I like using quite a lot of tomato puree. Each of these is 70 grams and it's just a pure tomato puree. There's nothing else in there. I know you can get some that have like herbs and things in. I don't like those. It's just pure tomato puree. I do think that having a lot of tomato flavour in your bolognese, for me anyway, is really key, because it just, you know, it's that kind of overall flavour that it gives. So I like a really deep tomatoey flavour, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. So both of those tomato purees have gone in, and now it's time for some oxos. Now, if you're not in the UK, you might not be familiar with oxos. Basically what an oxo is it's beef stock in a cube. It's a really old-fashioned thing, and then, you know, some of you might go, oh my gosh, I cannot believe she's adding oxo to that. But, you know, this is just what I do. And we love it. So I'm going to put in 2 oxos. Now, although they are beef, it's a beef stock effectively, there's a lot of salt in an oxo. So I actually don't, at this stage, I don't add any more salt to my bolognese. I wait until it's finished its cooking. I then taste it, and if I think it needs more salt, I'll just add some sea salt. So that's our 2 oxos in, and now I'm going to put in some dried oregano. And I really like oregano because oregano is a very Mediterranean plant. I particularly like it dried. This one is very good. The Schwartz one is very good. It's just got such a lovely smell. I honestly don't know how much I put in. I just sprinkle in a good amount. I don't know. That might have been about a tablespoon, I guess. But again, bear in mind, I've got a big quantity of mince in there. So dried oregano, because some herbs, I think, this is an entirely personal choice, okay? So this is just me, and everyone is different and everyone prefers their own thing. But for me, some herbs dry really well and others don't. So oregano, I think, is one of the herbs that dries really well. Herbs that I don't think dry well are parsley. I don't think dried parsley tastes of anything, if I'm honest. And I don't think basil dries very well. If I was going to use basil or parsley, I use them fresh. Now, I am going to be putting some parsley in this, actually, some fresh parsley, but that's at the end. If you put a nice sprinkling of parsley in at the end, you still get those little green flecks, which I think is really pretty. So you can see now our mince mixture has taken on a really lovely deep reddish colour. But we're going to enhance that even more now by adding in our tinned tomatoes. So I've got 3 400 gram tins of chopped tomatoes, and I'm just going to pile them in. 2 and 3. But what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to fill one of these tins halfway up with some water and put that in as well. Because the other thing I like with my bolognese is I like it to be nice and saucy. I do like it to have quite a bit of liquid, because then when you're having it with pasta, you know, it coats everything really nicely. So you can see now it's really coming together and looking delicious. But the last thing we need to add before we let it have its cooking time is the mushrooms. I forgot one thing that I add in as well, and this is highly controversial, but you might see the tomato ketchup in the background. I'm going to add in just a squirt of tomato ketchup. Now, the reason I do this is because tinned tomatoes, although I'm using really good quality ones, they still do have a tendency to be a little bit on the sharp side, and it's good to counterbalance that sharpness with a little bit of sweetness. So I literally just put in a squirt like that. Feel free to judge me if you want to. So now all I need to do is to chop up my mushrooms. I've just got a handful here of chestnut mushrooms. I find chestnut ones have the nicest flavour. A lot of children, I will say in particular, I think, would resist eating mushrooms if they saw them within something. But I find that if you chop them up fine enough, no one notices, and they will eat them without even realising that they're eating these delicious mushrooms. But the thing about mushrooms is that they really do add, especially if you use chestnut ones or field mushrooms, are my favourite actually. Gosh, I love field mushrooms. They really do enhance the flavour of everything, and they give a really sort of deep flavour to the bolognese. I think it really makes a difference. So I'm just going to chop these up like that, nice and fine, and actually they'll cook down even smaller because mushrooms have an awful lot of water in. So they will cook down even smaller, and your children will eat those mushrooms and get all the good things from them and not even know that they're eating them. Perfect. So we've got a big mountain of mushrooms there. It looks like a lot, doesn't it? But they just cook down, so don't worry. So now I'm just going to pile them in. Oh, it smells so nice. It just smells like home for me, this. So pile all those mushrooms in and then just give them a good stir. It just looks so rich and lovely, doesn't it? But we've really not put anything in there that's particularly fatful, if you know what I mean. You know, the mince is lean mince, so we've done the best we can with that. We've used the tiniest amount of oil. We've got all of those beautiful tomatoes in there. We've got mushrooms, we've got celery. It's full of good things. So that's everything in now, and we just need to let it cook. I really do let it cook for about an hour and a half, I would say. Just keep stirring it every sort of half hour maybe. Just keep an eye on it and just have it on your lowest heat. I put it here on this small one at the front. That's my lowest heat. Just let it sort of blip away and cook, and it's that kind of long, slow cooking that really makes the difference for me as well. So I'm just going to now bring it up to, first of all, bring it up to sort of a temperature where it starts to simmer quite nicely. And then you can bring it down. I'm going to move it over to my smaller burner, cover it, put my lid on, and just let that cook away for, like I said, about an hour and a half. So that's our bolognese made, and it's happily blipping away on the stove. So come back in part 2 and we are going to make the fantastic breadsticks. Can't wait, so yummy. See you back soon.
Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is an absolute classic. Talk about a taste of home. As Kay so rightly said, I would say that for most people our age, I remember when that type of eating started. I remember seeing my mum making those types of things in the kitchen and it being like, ooh, it's a new thing.
Yeah.
And one of the first things I said to you when you made that for me was, it reminds me of my mum's cooking, my mum's home cooking.
Yeah, so the
nostalgia factor is a big thing, I think.
It is, and it is a huge nostalgia thing, and just the ingredients that I use and the way I use them probably is not very modern, but it's not.
Neither is a lot of cooking.
No, it's not always about that, is it? If it tastes good, and it's good for you, and it's comforting, and it's Brian. Like I say, it's Bryony's favourite. She's thrilled because it's bolognese for tea today. She loves it, and we always have it with spelt pasta as well, of course. We don't need to say that anymore, do we? Yeah,
and I think it's just worth. We actually just had did you see that email that I forwarded on to you?
Yes, I replied to the.
Excellent. I just want to say to you all how worthwhile it would be for you to make the effort to try spelt.
Yes.
Because yes, I eat it because I just can't have the other stuff anymore because of the operations I've had and the way my tummy is. But I can tell you this categorically with regards to the bread and with regards to the pasta and even the cakes, I wouldn't go back.
No, I wouldn't go back.
Because we've all been in that position, haven't we, where, oh my goodness, I've eaten a bit too much, I'm feeling it a little bit. Yeah. You don't get that with spelt. You don't get
that with spelt, no.
And it also tastes great.
It does taste great. It's, the properties, it does have gluten. Spelt does have gluten, but it's a different sort of gluten because it's such an old grain. The modern wheats are just produced differently, and been developed differently, but the spelt, the gluten works in a different way, and it's much more dissolvable it sort of dissolves much more easily, and therefore it's much more digestible. And we never have problems,
No.
you know. The spelt pasta that we have is really excellent. It's Biona.
Yeah.
It's called Biona. We get it from Ocado, and you can buy it direct as well.
Yeah.
It's really excellent. They do spaghetti, they do all different shapes.
Noodles
it's fantastic. They do noodles as well, and we have the noodles as well with stir fry.
It's great.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, you know, the best bit of today's show, the spelt bit, it is my favourite of everything that you're doing in today's show. The breadsticks.
Yeah, I think I might have to make some this afternoon.
Not do it. Don't.
Oh, Bryony loves them so much.
But she'll love tea anyway.
I know she will. But
You've got to realise sometimes you can't do.
I know, but she loves them.
Yeah, I realise that, but just.
I know, I'm far too nurturing. I think.
Make them next time, you know, because
We'll see.
you'll be shattered otherwise.
Yeah, I know. I did do some baking for her yesterday.
Yes, I know. So that's the end of it.
Okay.
That's the end of it. Otherwise, it's overload, isn't it? She'll appreciate.
I know, but
she'll
be like,
appreciate the round, sugary things. No, she won't. She won't say a word. She will not say a single word.
All right.
And she'll just enjoy them next time. Look, that's enough of that. Because we're desperate to see how we make those delicious seeded spelt breadsticks.
Yes.
But to get there, we've got so much to show you.
Yes.
So I think it's time I ask Kay Jones, what's off your needles?
I do have some stuff. Ooh,
2 gorgeous pairs of socks.
2 pairs of socks.
And a pattern launch
And another pattern.
that isn't socks.
If you didn't get yourself a cup of tea whilst you were watching the
You're a fool.
cooking,
Pause now.
then pause
and come
now
back.
and go and make
In
yourself
fact, don't, because it's
a
too exciting.
delicious cup of tea. The best tea, can I just tell you also, the best cup of tea that I've ever had is the tea that I'm currently drinking, and it's from Birchall's, and it's the Rift Valley tea, and it's the ones that they produce in those pyramid bags in particular, rather than the sort of plain tea bags. I know they're more expensive in those pyramid bags. They are biodegradable. They're a really eco-friendly company, but it's the best tea. Birchall's Great Rift. Go and order yourself some. Back to the finished items. The first pair of socks I finished. Look what I finished. Oh, and it totally matches my top. It literally is the same colour as my top. I finished my Christmas Eve cast-on socks from last year.
Oh, and what month is it?
It's end of
6
June.
months later?
End of June, almost 6 months.
Even I finished socks quicker than that.
I know. I don't know what paused me with these. They're lovely. Look how lovely they are. I put in just like a little knit pearl textury thing, and the yarn's just gorgeous. It's Beehive yarns in Tacky Tree. Did you see my brain working then? Beehive yarns in Tacky Tree, just gorgeous. And it's this leftover that I'm currently putting into my bedtime blanket, because I'd already actually used 20 grams of this. I stole 20 grams out of the middle for a different project, but I still had, I think at the end I had like 28 grams left over. So I stole another 20 grams, and that's going into my bedtime blanket. So I've just got a little nugget left that I'm keeping hold of, because I'm sure I'll find a use at some point. And then the sort of burgundy colour was just a mini that I added in. So they are all finished and lovely, and just such, look at the speckles. I'm in awe of the speckles on this yarn. Just gorgeous. So they're all done. Yay! Christmas Eve socks. I am never casting on a Christmas Eve project ever again. I said that on the last one, didn't I? But honestly, it's not my thing.
What else is off your needles?
So it's another pair of socks, and it's my lovely stripy Prom Queen socks.
Gorgeous.
I finished these up as well. Ooh, and they're lovely, aren't they? I did a square heel turn on these as well. Now, can I show you the difference on these, or did I do that little technique? I think I did the technique on these as well, because these look nice and neat. Yeah, so I can't show you the sort of difference with the square heel. But yeah, these are all finished as well. Oh, and aren't they lovely? Blocked and lovely. I love the stripes in this. And this is Stripy Cat Yarns. It was a special edition that was dyed up a couple of years ago, called Happily Ever After. I've got loads left. I think I've got like 50 grams left, which is brilliant. So there's another pair of socks there, isn't there? So they're all done, and I did my Prom Queen pattern in these, which I think works lovely with self-striping.
Perfect.
So they're all done as well.
And anyone who's been watching the Case Time sock test series
Yes.
will recognise those socks.
Yep.
You'll see that she's finished them.
Yes.
So you'll know that she knows how long it takes her to knit a pair of socks now.
How long it took me to knit that
But
pair
we're
of socks.
saying nothing.
Say nothing.
That series will be ending in the next
Yeah,
week
I don't
or
want to
so.
surprise it. You know, I don't want to spoil the surprise, I should say.
I think the last episode might go out on the 24th, I think.
Right. So you can find out how long it took me to knit a sock.
Pattern launch?
So-
Oh, yes.
Yes.
That's how cool our summer of stitching is. That's how important this knit along is.
know.
Two special pattern launches
Two special
in
patterns.
one show.
Absolutely. So, yeah, both the tinsel socks and this next pattern are available to purchase today on Ravelry or Lovecrafts. So this pattern is my Christingle Mingle cowl. I've shown you this one several times actually in the past, and I knit this last Advent season with a friend. I designed it for me and my friend to knit. I dyed all the yarns, we opened them together as like a little Advent and we knit it together, and it was just such fun. I absolutely love knitting it, and she told me as well she loved knitting it. She finished before me, I think. You know, we both finished it within the time. It was just so fun. So what you need to knit this, it's got this lovely lace detail top and bottom. And then you will need 12 20 gram mini skeins. So ideally you want 6 that are like a solid colour or a tonal, and then 6 that are speckled. And that's the fun, you know, you get to mix solid with speckles, and then this middle section is 2 of the speckles together. That's really fun. And you know, it's just stocking stitch. All of this is stocking stitch and the stripes. But you know, the idea was that at that time of year, and also, you know, summers are busy, aren't they? And let's face it, everybody is busy all the time. But the idea was that it's the yarns really that shine, you know, and you're just doing lovely round and round stocking stitch, and then you're enjoying seeing how the next yarn changes the overall look of the cowl. I absolutely loved knitting this. And you do have a little bit of leftover from each of your minis, and within the pattern there's a bonus hat pattern to use your leftovers. So that's also in the pattern. Yeah, so that's the Christingle Mingle cowl, and that is also out today if you want to knit one of these up for Christmas in July, or, you know, you can hang on if you want to and knit it up at Christmas.
Perfect!
Yeah.
How exciting is that? 2 amazing patterns, 1 stupendous knit along, starting,
Yes.
as we've said, on the 1st of July.
Yes.
That's enough of that, because I want some breadsticks. So without further ado, let's get back in the kitchen and find out how we make them.
Everybody to Kay's Cosy Kitchen, where we are making our bolognese and our delicious breadsticks. So we've done the bolognese, that is cooking away, and it's now time to make those breadsticks. So exciting! Okay, so what are we going to need to make our breadsticks? So the first thing I've got over here are the poppy seeds. These are I got these from Marks and Spencer's, but you can get any sort of poppy seeds that are used for cooking. We've then got some oil. I like the light olive oil, but whatever oil you want to use. We've got some fine sea salt. I don't like the sort of man-made salts. I always use sea salt, but when you're making any sort of bread, it does need to be the fine type. We've then got sugar and our flour, which is for us always the white spelt flour, and then some dried yeast. So let's have a little look at what equipment we will need. Okay, so really simple basic things to make our breadsticks. I've just got a nice roomy mixing bowl, our weighing scales, our baking tray, which I've just lined with some foil. I've then got just a measuring jug, some measuring spoons, and then just a spoon that I'm going to use to mix the dough together. So that's everything that we're going to need. Do you get it? So think I've done that before. That's a really bad joke. It's time to make the breadsticks. Let's get going. Okay, so we need to make our dough for our breadsticks. So I'm going to put my bowl onto the scales and then zeroize. So first thing to go in is our flour. And I'm doing like a half quantity that I would use if I was making a loaf of bread. I mean, you can make less or more and just adjust everything. I need to get this to 250, and I try to be as accurate as I can with measurements because it does make a difference, especially with bread. I've found it really does make a difference. Is that going to knock on to 250? Yes. So that's bang on 250, perfect. Into there we're going to pop half a teaspoon of sugar and then half a teaspoon of dried yeast. And then I'm just going to give those a little mix. I just want to distribute that yeast and sugar through. And then we need to just zeroize that again. And now we need to add in the water. So on my scales, I've actually got a conversion to millilitres. So I want 150 mils of warm water. So just pour it in slowly, and as it gets sort of close to the 150, I just put a bit in and just give it a second. Oh, yeah, 150, perfect. And now I'm just going to give that just a couple of mixes like that. That's all. And then I'm going to add in my salt, which is another half a teaspoon. Okay. And then I want about half a tablespoon of, well, in my case it's olive oil, whatever oil you want, so about half a tablespoon. And now we can bring that all together. I do this initially just with the spoon. And I just use the spoon just to sort of scrape all of the bits off so that it all goes in. And when it gets to sort of that stage, I then scrape all of that off the spoon and then just go in with my hand just to finish bringing it all together. And then once it's all together like that, we need to give it 100 kneads. So just count it. So that's our dough all kneaded, and now we can roll out the breadsticks. So we've got our dough in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of flour on. You don't want to use a lot of extra flour because that will affect the dough. But I find that it can be a bit of a sticky task doing this. So I just put a tiny bit of flour there on my work surface. So we need to basically divide this up. When I've made this before, I've made about 14 breadsticks. They were really big chunky breadsticks, which is what I wanted to make. So I'm going to do that again today, but if you want skinnier ones, smaller ones, then just split it into more. But I'm going to do what I did before because we really liked having the big chunky breadsticks. So just divide it, you know, start by dividing it in half. And then I know that each of these needs to go into about 7, which is not an even number, that is it? But so I'll probably divide that into a sort of slightly bigger section and a slightly smaller, because then I can get 4 out of that and 3 out of that. And then what I do is sort of make it into a little sausage and then just divide that, in this case, into 3, like that. And then this one into 4. You'll find that some are bigger than others, and you know, it's part of the joy, isn't it? They're handmade at the end of the day. They're not going to look uniform like you've just taken them out of the box from Sainsbury's, but we don't want them to do that, do we? So again, do the same with this half. Just divide it up. And this would be a great thing to do with your children or grandchildren. I'm sure they would love to help you do this. go, and then that last one into 4. But like I say, you know, make smaller ones if you want to. So now each of these we need to roll into a long sausage. Now I do them so they're really long. So on my baking trays over here, I've actually got 2 baking trays. I totally forgot I needed 2. They're exactly the same, both lined. But my breadsticks are going to be like this, so I'm using the length of the baking tray because I think they should be really long. If you want to do them shorter, then go the other way. But mine will be laying down like this. Now, I found the best way, actually, is to just grab your piece of dough and just roll it in your hand like this. Can you see how it just like grows into this little thin sausage? It's really fun. And then when you think it's long enough, just sort of measure it against your baking tray. You know, you will have done. But we do need to put on some poppy seeds, but we will do that once they're on the baking tray. So you can see it sort of stretches as you roll it, and that it still looks a little bit shorter than my tray. It's about, the thickness is about a chopstick, something like that, but that looks about right. So just lay it down on your baking tray, and that's our first breadstick, and just keep going. So just grab your next one. And if you've got someone helping you, you know, this would take half the time. So I will keep going until I've filled up both of these baking trays and I have got all of these lovely little balls of dough rolled into breadsticks. Okay, so that's all of our lovely breadsticks all rolled out. So I'm now just going to sprinkle on a few poppy seeds. So I'm just going to go along and work up. So just sort of go along sprinkling, and then we'll just give them a little roll to stick them on. You don't have to use poppy seeds, you could use sesame if you prefer, that would be lovely. Or you could just do them plain. The first time I made them I didn't put anything on them actually, just had plain and they were lovely. Okay, so all that we need to do now is to cover these and let them prove for about an hour. So just put them somewhere, tuck them into a corner in your kitchen, leave them for an hour. So I've just got a couple of tea towels here, they're clean obviously. I've soaked them through and then wrung them out so that they're nice and damp, and that just gives a nice atmosphere in there for them to rise. Okay, so our breadsticks have had an hour proving now and they've puffed up nicely, so they're ready to go into the oven. So I've preheated my oven to 200. It needs to be a nice hot oven, and I'm going to put them in for initially for about 7 minutes. So set a timer because it's easy to forget. And then we're going to take them out, I'll flip them over and just give them another 3 minutes. So it should be about 10 minutes altogether, but be judged by what they look like because everybody's ovens are different. You just want them to be, I mean, we all know what breadsticks look like, don't we? Just that sort of nice pale sort of golden colour. And once they've had their 10 minutes cooking, they will be ready for us to eat. Right, so our Bolognese has had a good hour and a half cooking away, and I've just checked the seasoning, so I've had a little taste, checked the seasoning. I did add a little bit more salt, but really not a lot at all. It was pretty spot on. And all that's left to do now is going to turn it down a bit actually. All that's left to do now is just to add a bit of fresh parsley. You don't have to do this, but I just like to add it right at the very end. So literally, you know, as your pasta is cooking and it's just got 5 minutes left more to cook, I've just chopped up some fresh parsley and I'm just going to pop in a sort of little handful. And then just stir that through and just give it 5 minutes, and then we can serve it up and give it a try. and I get to try it. So I've got a bit of breadstick. I just broke a bit off. It's super yummy. I've had these before, so we know they're yummy, but delicious. I really like them made a bit bigger like this, because if you eat them really fresh, then that middle bit that's sort of chunky, it's still a bit soft in the middle. So, and it's really, really delicious. The next day, if you have them the next day, they're kind of more crunchy, like a traditional breadstick. So here's my bolognese on some lovely spelt pasta and a bit of parmesan. Always fresh parmesan, you know, grated from a block. I would never buy it pre-grated. It doesn't taste the same at all, but that's just me. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to get a bit. I'm going to have a bit of pasta. Very delicious. Still steaming. Oh, it's so yummy. It's just really, really tasty. I know that sounds a bit corny, but it really is. It's really delicious. And, you know, all that effort that I went to in sort of mashing the mince, I know that seemed a bit ridiculous, but what it means is that it's a really, like I said before, it's kind of like a fine grain to it. It's just delicious. And we always kind of plonk it on top of the pasta. I think traditionally Italians would kind of mix it all in, but again, harking back to my sort of 80s days, that was just what you did. You put the pasta in, you put the bolognese on top, and then the cheese on top of that. It's really delicious, so I'm gonna carry on and eat this now and be very happy. And the breadstick is super yummy and fluffy in the middle. Just gorgeous, really, really brilliant breadsticks. So happy cooking, and I will see you very soon for the next Kay's Cosy Kitchen.
Goodness, that is just delicious.
Yummy.
And those breadsticks, I shall let you into a little secret. If you make those, they will not be around. No. When you make those, they're not going to be around very long.
No. They last a couple of days in our house. Normally.
What makes them special is, for me, breadsticks from the shops, I've never really been a lover of.
No, they're almost like dust, aren't they? They're very crispy.
Yeah, it's like a long straight biscuit for cheese.
Kind of. They're just very dry, I think
Yes.
that's what I want to say.
And what's so amazing about these is, even when you're on a bit which is crispy like a breadstick, it's not the same. It's not dried out.
No, I find that the end bits are sort of snappable, but the bit in the middle... The bit in the middle, that's Bryony's favourite bit.
Marvellous.
It's kind of still soft.
Yes.
You know, so don't overcook them or don't overbake them. That's the thing. Mine actually took, because if they're a bit thicker, they might take a couple of minutes longer than the sort of 10 minutes. But don't overcook them, because then you'll get that middle bit is still a bit soft. Oh, it's good. It's good. And the poppy seeds are like,
take it to another level. Yeah. What I love about things like that is, you know, you take something which people just... You don't really spend a lot of time thinking about breadsticks. You might go to a restaurant, you might be given some, you might buy some at home, and they're just a thing. It's like just something that you just eat sometimes with a few dips. You don't get excited about it. You will when you have these.
You will. They're really good. They're really good.
And combine them with bolognese. You can have... I actually said to Kay, you don't need to make any pasta. Just serve up the bolognese and just dip the breadsticks in it. You could do that.
Yeah, you could absolutely do that.
That'd be a gorgeous lunch.
Yeah, you could do that. Or you could use the breadsticks for dips, you know, if you got a
you could slice them down the middle and spread them with peanut butter.
If you got a proper dinner party thing going on, you know, you could have the breadsticks as a little starter, couldn't you, with some dips on the table for people to have.
That green one. That's quite nice. Although I can't have that anymore. The last time I had it,
no, our favourite dip at the minute is the beetroot hummus.
Oh, yes. Yes, it's gorgeous.
Oh, my word. If you like beetroot hummus is absolutely delicious.
It's beetroot and horseradish.
Yes, but
that's
you don't really...
something you wouldn't expect, is it?
I mean, the horseradish,
you
don't... It's just a little bit of horseradish. And,
it's
you know,
stuff.
I don't like hot stuff, but...
No.
Yummy.
It actually changes. I'm not so fond of, like, straight hummus.
I don't mind it. I like it with other stuff in, like...
It's really nice with
we used to get a red pesto mixed through is nice.
Yeah.
We used to get a red pepper hummus, which was nice.
Yeah, but none of them are anywhere.
No, the
beetroot is up here, and the rest is like way down here.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I love beetroot. Yum yum.
Now, if you enjoy Kay's Cosy Kitchen, if you love walking the wall. If you can't live without my favourite colourways, then we need you. I'm like that man from World War One.
Oh, yeah.
Who points, I forget his name. Is it Kitchener?
I think it was Kitchener, wasn't it? On the poster. Was it Kitchener on the poster?
How appropriate is this?
Yeah,
I need one of those
was.
hats. Amazing.
Yeah.
Look, without our Bakery Bear patrons, this show would just not exist.
No.
So if you want to keep us here doing all the things that we do, and my goodness, we're planning for the next year, the year after,
Yeah.
and the year after that.
We actually are. We actually are.
And if you knew what the plans were,
They're really, really big plans.
you'd explode.
Yeah, I know. They're very, very big plans.
But we can only get there with all of you.
Yeah.
So we thank so much to our Bakery Bear patrons that
Yes.
enable us to be here doing this and, you know, being able to sit here with you and make all these lovely shows. But my goodness, if some more of you could come and join our wonderful community, it would be just the business.
Amazing.
Because it would push us even faster towards some things which I feel quite lightheaded thinking about.
Yeah, I know.
If you want to find out all the details about how to become a Bakery Bear patron, just follow the link in the show notes below and it tells you exactly how you can start. Well, you can come and join our community, and there's all sorts of different levels that you can come in at.
There is.
From as simple as $2, the equivalent of $2 right the way up to lots more. And the further up you go, the more you get to watch.
Yeah.
Because my goodness, do we produce a lot of stuff.
We do.
Like the Moonstruck Socks course.
Yeah.
And your timed socks course. And, folks, last time we mentioned our making of series.
Oh, yes.
And we spoke a little bit about how we're going to do...
Yes.
Well, we've actually done an episode on walking the wall.
Oh, it's the most brilliant thing.
Well...
I watched it, didn't I?
Kay watched it.
I was like, this is amazing.
There's been... Basically, we had a huge response from people saying, oh my goodness, they can't wait for that.
Yeah.
We also had a huge response from people saying they wish that they could see that. And whilst we would love to be able to make that free for everyone, we just can't, because otherwise...
No.
We've got to have the special stuff.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be here doing this. But what we are going to do is next time we're going to show you a little bit of it.
A little clip. Yeah.
So everyone will get to see. And I'm not just talking 60 seconds.
No.
I'm talking probably 3, 4, maybe even 5 minutes.
You're going to do a good edit, aren't you?
I'm going to do a good short edit. It's a 30-minute documentary.
It's 30-minute, and I sat and watched it. And, you know, I obviously know Dan goes out and does these things, but I really, honestly had no idea the level of work that goes into it. And I was just like, I cannot believe you do all that by yourself, you know. And it really was brilliant. I loved watching it. So thank you for putting the effort in, because you did that whilst you were filming the last Walking the Wall. So he's filming the Walking the Wall and he's filming a making of at the same time.
It was blowing my mind a little bit. So look, next time we're going to show you a little snippet from that.
Yeah.
But on the 28th of this month, I think it's the 20th, so the 26th or the 28th, I'll put it in the show notes below so you know exactly what's going to happen. We're going to actually put this out to our Bakery Bear patrons, so it will be available way earlier than we'd anticipated, because we were going to broadcast it in September, but actually, because Kay went crazy for it and you've all said, I really want to see it, it's going to be available to our Bakery Bear patrons at the end of this month, and also we'll show a snippet of it in the next show.
Yes.
Very exciting. It's time for the Endy Bits.
Endy Bits.
Now then.
So the only Endy bit I've got to just talk about is my project for Christmas in July.
Right.
I wanted to just let you know that I've sort of gathered all my bits and what I'm currently planning on doing. Now, mine's might get changed because that's just what happens with me. But at the moment, I'm pretty sure this is what I'm going to be making. So it's in my fantastic Christmas-themed bag from lovely Emma at Moo and Mouse, and I think she's actually made some like this for her shop. It's
beautiful.
Just beautiful. I love it. And in my lovely bag, I've got all the yarns ready to knit another Christingle Mingle.
Woohoo!
I've wanted to knit another one. In fact, as soon as I cast that one off at the back end of last year, I wanted to cast on another straight away because I just enjoyed knitting it so much. But I've held off. And so I've got my pattern printed. I actually printed the pattern. And I've got all my yarns in here. And what I've decided to do for this one is it's kind of like it's more of a slightly autumnal but not really themed. And what I've done is I've chosen 6 Cascade Heritage yarns for the solids. And then I've gone into my stash and I've chosen 6 speckleds. Except I need another speckled. I've only got 5 there. I need to find another speckle. But the 6 Cascade Heritage yarns I've chosen, it's kind of like a peachy to a darker shade. So these are the first 3. Oh, look at that. And then these are the last 3. Can you see? Oh, how gorgeous is that? For some reason, I am quite into orange at the moment. I've never been an orange person. Can you hold me those 3 up like that? And then these 3. Look how lovely that is. Oh. So they're the solids. And then, like I said, I've just gone into my stash and chosen some speckles. I'm not even sure what these are. That one's Sirius, actually, that I dyed up. But I've just chosen really delicately speckled. Can you see? And I've got to find one more. That's the other 2, so I've got 5 at the moment. I just need one more. So that sort of orangey down to the deep, oh, I love this one, the deep sort of garnety colour. And then those speckled, oh, I think it's going to be so lovely. And I'll have it hopefully ready then for autumn, and it'll just be a really sort of light autumnal looking cowl. So that, you know, you don't have to have them festive themed. You know, this one, the colours are not festive at all particularly. It's the theme of it, you know, and the idea of opening those 12 little parcels. You know, if you wanted to, you could get someone else in your household to wrap them up for you, couldn't you, and number them. And then you get that joy of opening them up through July. So that's all ready to go. I just need to find a needle and I just need one more speckled yarn, and then I'll be ready to cast on for Christmas in July.
Oh my goodness, that's going to be so epic. I cannot wait for this Christmas in July. It's going to be so cool.
Yes.
The perfect crown jewel in our summer of stitching.
Yes.
And of course, the Stitchy U.
Stitchy U.
That commences also in July.
In July.
Oh yes, but we can talk more about that on the next show.
Yeah.
Folks, that's it. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks, everybody.
As we mentioned earlier, don't miss our radio show, which came out last week. There'll be another one out next week.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, this radio show that we just did, because I had a few people saying they'd never heard me get angry before. I got a bit frustrated talking about one of the films that I thought should never have been made. It was very personal to me. And Kay also revealed some sequels that she thought never should have been made that were
quite
really
a controversial show.
Quite shocking.
Yes.
But we spoke the majority of the time about sequels that should have been made.
Yeah.
So it was all very sort of cool, talking about favourite books, TV shows, films, which we thought needed another chapter, if you like.
Yeah.
Folks, that's it. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another My Favourite Colourways.
Yes.
But for now, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
Bye.
Singing and knitting, it's Dan and Kay, the bakery players. Enthusiasm's not quitting for Dan and Kay, the bakery players. They'll take you to fabulous places of which their favorites they'll share. You better buy a pattern, get yourself a bakery pair. You'll find yourself in a castle while watching the bakery bears. It never feels like a hassle to sit and watch the bakery bears. What's on your shelf or what's in your oven, or maybe a shawl you'll want to wear. So sit yourself right down and watch Dan and Kay, the bakery